On the Fisherman's Facebook page over the weekend, a lot of folks chimed in on this monster doormat fluke weighed in at True World Tackle in Bayonne on Friday, August 6th. Now, Akira at True World let us know that this big flukosaurus taped out at 33.5 inches long. Now, the early reports we had were that this was going to be a Dream Boat Fishing Challenge entry for the Fisherman Magazine's members-only contest. But as it turns out, the captain of the boat was a Fisherman subscriber. The angler, however, was not. But I stopped in to True World Tackle in North Jersey this week, where I found Akira busy at the spooling counter, prepping for another busy week of memorable catches. And it's there, inside the Bayonne tackle shop, where I got a chance to meet and talk to Marc the angler, Owen the netman, and Jeff the captain, who all had this to say about that big doormat.
So we were drifting in the deep, I'd say at least 70 feet or so. And for a while the current was pretty heavy, sort of getting frustrated because I had to let a lot of line out. Current let up a bit and I started jigging the way I like to jig, pretty much straight up and down, just going out a little from the boat. We were getting a couple short hits. I had a hit. I let back on it a little bit and leaned up. It was one of those things where you think you're stuck on the bottom and the bottom starts moving a little bit. I knew I was into a good one. So I, started reeling them in. I yelled over to the guys, "I got a monster on, guys. I got a monster." And at some point during that fight, Jeff had hooked up to another fish that he was fighting in the back. And I had realized at one point I had lighter leader on. I was backing off on the drag, so I was bringing him up. And I noticed those guys were hooked up. I said, "Get the net ready." Started walking over to where the net was. Jeff was tied into a 6-pounder. 6-pounder came in. As time was going on, I'm getting closer to closer where I needed netted. They were all fouled up in the net. Ended up cutting the line in the net, putting the net in the water with a 6-pounder in there, and eventually netting the fish. And I couldn't even see what was going on really, because I was up near the bow and they were down in the back, and maybe a good thing because I probably would have panicked.
You used a unique rig. It wasn't just a bucktail with a dropper. What did you do special with this rig?
I used a bucktail with a double dropper, and the droppers were a twisted dropper where you twist the line so it sticks out a little bit, and I did a double. And this fish came up to the top offering.
Have you done that before?
I've never done it. I've been playing around with rigs and decided, they've been coming up to the, the first one. I thought, what, one is good, two might be better.
What was on that top rig that fluke took?
That top rig had a Berkeley Gulp sand eel tipped with a killie. And that's what the big guy was looking for.
My cousin pulled in a big fish, a 6-pounder. So he's tangled in the net. We couldn't get him out in time. The other fish was almost out to the top. He was ready, we were ready to get the other fish. We didn't have any time, so we cut the line, left the big fish in the net, and went in with the 6-pounder in the net. And the other fish came up to the top, and I thought I was seeing things. I barely got him in the net. This fish was so big. Thank God, because it was barely hooked after we got him in the net, that we got him in. Because the week before, I missed a small fish, and I never heard the end of that fish. So if I would have lost this, I probably wouldn't be fishing again on that boat ever.
Not a lot of people have 21 pounds of fluke in a net at the same time. What was your thought there?
I lifted it up. I was like, oh my God, there's a lot of weight here. Let's see how much this thing weighs. And I just bought a new scale. So we put him on the scale, a handheld scale I had, and it was going between 15 and 16 pounds. I was like, this thing can't be right.
The scale can't be right.
It can't be right. I mean, it looked big, but I didn't think it was that big. Weight-wise, it was thick.
Was it?
So we tried measuring on top of the cooler. The cooler was 28 inches, and it was way beyond the 28 inches. It wound up measuring at 33.5, I believe it was. So it made the 6-pounder look like a small fish.
Put that fish in the net, or in the cooler.
In the cooler, and his fins coming up the side of the cooler.
It must have been going crazy.
It was massive, yeah. It was pretty exciting.
Well, the way it went down was I had that 6-pounder. I found out that Marc was hooked up to a monster. I'm trying to get my fish in as quickly as possible. Then it turns out that as I get him towards the top, Marc is now real close with the big fish to the top, so we netted mine very quickly. Then we had to make a quick decision. It was like a fire drill, where basically we just decided we couldn't get him out because the hooks were caught in the net. We cut the line, the leader, and then just drop that 6-pounder back in the water to net the 15-pounder.
In the net, so I mean,
In the net.
but drop it in the water, but that fish is already in the net.
Yeah,
Now you
yeah.
got that other 15 and a half pounds in
Right.
there. What was that fish's behavior when you put it in that cooler?
Well, I'll tell you what. When we put them in the cooler, we have quite a bit of ice in the cooler, and then basically the top is popping up and down, and he was just going nuts, absolutely nuts.
How long did he beat?
I don't know. Could have been a half hour or so, and we decided we wanted to weigh him, but we decided to just let him calm down for a while. We waited about an hour. He was calm at that point. We weighed him, and I think, as Owen said, that we're reading 15 to 16 pounds on his new scale. And I said, no, that's not right. I'm thinking 12,
Right.
I mean, I've seen some big fish before, but I'm thinking 12. And when we brought it on in and weighed out at 15 and a half, I was, big fish, real big fish.
Of course, with social media being what it is, which is anything but social, a lot of folks looked at the red marks along that tail, along the white underbelly of that fluke, and said, this is a commercially dragged fluke. Well, do you think that bruising might come from 30 minutes of that tail banging against a cooler that was honestly a little bit on the small side, especially when you consider it was holding 21 and a half pounds of fluke? And no, it's not a tournament entry. While skipper Jeff is a Fisherman subscriber, the angler, Marc, is not, or he was not.
I went online and immediately subscribed. I've been a buyer of the magazine since the 70s when I first started fishing with my dad, and I buy them at newsstands, and I've had subscriptions back in the 70s and 80s. And as soon as I figured out what I missed out on, I immediately went in there and subscribed.
So mark Marc's words: subscribe, catch, enter, and win.